What happens when a brand is built on hype instead of substance? At first, Prime looked unstoppable. Shelves were empty. Bottles were resold for crazy prices. Kids lined up outside supermarkets just to get one. But just as fast as it exploded, the excitement faded. In less than 2 years, Prime went from a viral phenomenon to a brand struggling to maintain relevance. Created by Logan Paul and KSI, Prime wasn't launched like a normal sports drink. It was marketed as an event, driven by scarcity, spectacle, and one of the most impressionable audiences on the internet. And while that strategy worked in the short term, it left Prime dangerously exposed once the hype wore off. This is the story of how Prime rose faster than almost any beverage brand in history, and why it fell just as quickly. Before Prime ever existed, Logan Paul and KSI were known for one thing above all else: rivalry. Both men rose to fame on YouTube, built massive audiences, and thrived on controversy. Their online tension eventually turned into real-world spectacle when they faced each other in the boxing ring in 2018 and again in 2019. Those fights didn't just draw millions of viewers. They proved that internet personalities could mobilize enormous attention and turn it into real money. By early 2022, most people assumed the chapter was closed. So when Logan Paul teased a major announcement on January 4th, fans immediately speculated about a third fight. Instead, the live stream delivered a surprise no one expected. Logan and KSI appeared together, embraced, and announced a business partnership. Not a rematch, a drink brand. That twist alone was enough to send the internet into overdrive. At its peak, the live stream drew more than 500,000 concurrent viewers, instantly giving Prime a level of exposure most brands could never afford. From the very start, Prime was positioned differently from traditional sports drinks. It wasn't marketed around performance science or athletic credibility. It was built for visibility, loud packaging, bold lettering, colors designed to stand out on camera and on social media feeds. And most importantly, it was scarce. The first batch sold out within hours. Instead of flooding the market, Prime was released in limited drops, creating artificial shortages that drove demand even higher. Fans rushed to buy bottles as soon as they were available. Resellers stepped in. Prices skyrocketed online. When Prime finally reached major retailers like Walmart in the US and supermarkets in the UK, the pattern repeated. Shelves emptied quickly. Long queues formed. Media outlets covered the frenzy. Prime became less of a drink and more of a status symbol, especially among younger fans. By the end of 2022, Prime had gone from a viral announcement to a global phenomenon. Revenue surged, distribution expanded, and Logan Paul and KSI had successfully turned attention into a billion-dollar brand. What wasn't obvious yet was the trade-off. Because Prime's success wasn't built on taste, quality, or innovation. It was built on hype, and hype, by definition, doesn't last forever. By the time Prime's initial hype showed no signs of slowing, Logan Paul and KSI moved quickly to turn viral success into long-term dominance. What started as a scarce, influencer-led product was now positioned as a serious global brand. Prime expanded distribution across the United States and the United Kingdom, securing shelf space in major retailers like Walmart, Target, Aldi, and Asda. The limited drops that once fueled demand were gradually replaced by wider availability, and Prime bottles became a permanent fixture in supermarkets rather than a rare find. At the same time, the brand began chasing legitimacy. Prime signed high-profile sponsorship deals that most new beverage companies could only dream of. Football clubs like Arsenal and FC Barcelona partnered with the brand. Star athletes such as Erling Haaland were brought in as ambassadors. Prime became the official sports drink of both the UFC and WWE, placing its logo in front of millions of viewers during some of the biggest sporting events in the world. These weren't small marketing moves. The message was clear. Prime wasn't just an internet trend anymore. It was here to compete with the biggest names in sports nutrition. Behind the scenes, Prime scaled just as aggressively. Manufacturing contracts were signed with major bottling companies to support long-term, high-volume production. Supply was no longer intentionally limited. The assumption was simple. Demand would continue growing, and the hype would carry the brand forward indefinitely. Logan Paul even spoke openly about the possibility of a future buyout by giants like Coca-Cola or Pepsi, suggesting Prime was on a fast track toward becoming a legacy beverage brand. But this rapid expansion came with a hidden risk. Prime had skipped a critical phase that most successful consumer products go through, proving long-term value beyond attention. The brand had never been stress-tested in a market where novelty wore off and repeat customers mattered more than viral moments. As Prime pushed deeper into mainstream retail and sports sponsorships, the factors that originally made it special began to disappear. Scarcity faded. Shelves stayed full. And once Prime stopped feeling exclusive, consumers started asking a simple question: is the product actually good enough to stand on its own? That question would soon become impossible to ignore. As Prime became easier to find and the initial hype began to cool, the conversation around the brand started to change. During its rise, Prime was rarely judged on taste or performance. Most people bought it because it was hard to get, visually loud, and constantly promoted by creators they followed. But once Prime bottles stopped feeling rare, consumers began evaluating it like any other drink on the shelf. And that's when the criticism started. Many first-time buyers were underwhelmed. Online reviews described the flavor as overly sweet, artificial, or chemically processed. Streamers and creators with audiences similar to Prime's core demographic tried it live and openly criticized the taste. Clips spread quickly, doing more damage than any traditional review ever could. At the same time, health concerns began to surface, especially after the release of Prime Energy. Unlike Prime Hydration, the energy drink contained caffeine levels comparable to multiple cans of soda or several cups of coffee in a single serving. Doctors and pediatricians raised alarms, particularly because Prime's branding and online presence strongly appealed to children and teenagers. Parents, teachers, and school administrators started pushing back. Some schools banned Prime products outright. Others warned students against bringing them onto campus. In several regions, the brand became a regular topic in discussions about youth marketing and energy drinks. This marked a major shift in perception. Prime was no longer seen as a fun internet trend. It was now being questioned as a product, what it contained, who it was really for, and whether it should ever have been marketed the way it was. Meanwhile, established competitors quietly regained ground. Drinks like Gatorade, Powerade, and Body Armor didn't rely on viral moments or limited drops. They relied on consistency, trust, and repeat customers, areas where Prime was now struggling. As repeat purchases declined, the weaknesses of Prime's business model became clear. Scarcity had masked quality concerns, and once that scarcity disappeared, there was little left to convince consumers to keep buying. By the time Prime attempted to reassure the public through statements and behind-the-scenes content, the damage was already done. The narrative had shifted, and regaining trust would prove far more difficult than generating hype ever was. Once Prime lost its momentum, the consequences were immediate and unforgiving. For the first time since launch, Prime wasn't selling out, it was sitting. Shelves that were once empty stayed fully stocked. Retailers who had fought to carry the product now struggled to move it. And without scarcity to create urgency, consumers simply walked past it. This was the moment Prime's business model was truly tested. During its rise, Prime had scaled aggressively. Massive manufacturing contracts were signed to meet what was expected to be long-term growing demand. Distribution expanded rapidly across the US and UK. The assumption was that Prime's popularity would stabilize at a high level. Instead, demand dropped. As sales slowed, supply caught up and then exceeded it. Prime bottles began appearing in discount sections and clearance racks. Multi-pack deals were offered just to clear inventory. In some stores, Prime was reduced to prices far below its original retail value. That visual shift mattered. A product that once felt exclusive now felt unwanted. And in consumer psychology, nothing kills desire faster than abundance combined with indifference. The numbers reflected it. Sales in key markets declined sharply compared to the previous year. Profit margins collapsed even faster, squeezed by high production costs, sponsorship commitments, and unsold inventory. Prime was no longer operating like a lean, viral startup. It was carrying the weight of a global beverage brand without the stability to support it. Meanwhile, the audience that fueled Prime's rise had already moved on. Younger consumers, especially Gen Z and Gen Alpha, are notoriously trend-driven. What's exciting one year becomes embarrassing the next. Once Prime stopped feeling new, its association with hype worked against it. Owning a bottle was no longer a flex. It was just another drink. Attempts to reframe the brand came too late. Promotional content focused on production quality, and behind-the-scenes operations failed to change public perception. The issue was no longer awareness or trust, it was relevance. Prime had built its success on attention, but attention is temporary, and without strong fundamentals like superior taste, clear positioning, or long-term brand loyalty, there was nothing to slow the fall. By this stage, Prime wasn't collapsing because of one mistake. It was collapsing because the entire strategy depended on momentum, and momentum had run out. Prime's story isn't just about a drink, it's about the modern attention economy, and what happens when a product is built to go viral before it's built to last. Logan Paul and KSI didn't fail at marketing. In fact, they executed one of the most effective influencer-led launches ever. They understood their audience perfectly. They mastered scarcity, spectacle, and timing. And for a brief moment, they turned attention into a billion-dollar business. But attention is not loyalty. Once the hype faded, Prime was forced to compete on the same terms as every other beverage brand: taste, trust, and consistency. And that's where it struggled. The product had never been designed to survive in a world where people weren't emotionally invested in the creators behind it. Prime's downfall highlights a fundamental difference between viral success and sustainable success. Going viral can get people to buy once. Staying relevant requires giving them a reason to come back. This is especially true in industries like food and drink, where habits matter more than trends. Established brands didn't dominate the market because they were exciting. They dominated because they were dependable. Prime tried to shortcut that process, and the shortcut eventually ran out. That doesn't mean Prime will disappear entirely. Brands rarely vanish overnight, but its trajectory serves as a warning for both creators and consumers. Influence can create demand, but it can't replace fundamentals. And no amount of marketing can permanently compensate for a product that doesn't deliver. In the end, Prime will be remembered not just as a viral drink, but as a case study in how fast internet fame can be converted into real-world success, and how just as quickly that success can unravel. Because when hype is the foundation, collapse is only a matter of time. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more stories like this, make sure to subscribe. I appreciate you being here, and I'll see you in the next one.
I know you're not following what I'm saying anyway, right? That's okay, that doesn't matter. The real question is this: is all this legal? Absolutely fucking not.